Ladies and gentlemen, it's another Wednesday, another 11 a.m. somewhere around in this world. I'm very much looking forward to this call today because we have a guest today. Andy, beautiful coach from my beautiful gym, by the way. And as much as I like talking in concepts, so you get the big gist of it, we have very specific and concrete questions because we have a weird training group where I tell people what they should do and should not do and give them feedback, and they post videos and we all get stronger. It's a weird training group focused on progress. And there was something coming up yesterday, which I want to talk about today, which will be more going into lats and what's actually mobility and how to work on your lats. So I'm very much looking forward to practical stuff today. Bring it on. Bring on the questions.
Hi, everyone. So the big topic was blood flow and how does it enlarge body parts? Not to sound clickbaity, but we are focusing here on the lats when doing Yates rows, for instance.
All right. So the thing we talked about yesterday in the training group was, so Andy was posting a video of him doing a Yates row. And obviously, I hope everybody agrees that we're doing Yates rows with the barbell to get our lats stronger, whatever that means, getting the lats stronger, right? And I saw him doing the Yates row and holding the barbell on top. And I think I asked the question, why is he doing that? Is that correct? Did I ask? Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
And then he said, now it's your turn. What did he say?
To gain more tension in my lats. When I'm holding the bar close to my body, I'm gaining more tension in my lats. Actually, to bring the shoulder blades down and together.
Exactly. Good. So the big question is always, okay, what's the goal for that exercise? As you guys know, as of now, I don't think in exercises, I think in problems to be solved. And in that case, we're wanting to solve the problem of having little or zero lats. When I say lats, I mean from all the way from the top, all the way to the bottom of the hip crease, like full lat, not just shoulder blades, rib cage. It's all the way down to the hip crease. That's what the lat actually is about. So the goal is, I want to get my lats engaged while doing Yates rows. The goal is not, okay, I'll do 3 times 10 Yates rows because Greg told me so, right? So that's where we're coming from. And then I went further. It's like, okay, I think he even replied like, okay, I want to strengthen my lats. And I asked him, okay, so what is strength? And then we went on. And then he was like, okay, I want to work on my mobility. And I was like, okay, what is mobility? And at the end of the day, there's yeah, go ahead. Was that a question?
No.
Okay. So the Yates row, we go tension with position, right? Position with tension, doesn't matter. So what we want to do, how to engage the lats the most. That's the only thing we care about. So we have to go position first. And position means what does my body, my bones have to do to favor engaging the lats. So where does my shoulder blades, my big arm bone, my spine, my hips have to move to make sure I get the most benefit out of doing stupid exercises for my goal of finding my lats and making them strong, right? That's the position part. The tension part is, okay, there's 3 jobs every single big muscle in your body has to be capable of, which is stabilizing, absorbing, and producing. So that means holding, then sort of breaking, absorbing tension, and then producing, right? So the lats, and that's why actually, that's why I asked him, because I don't think holding stuff at the top is the best way to activate your lats. And let me dive into it.
Okay.
Where are the attachment of the lat? Where are the attachment of the lats on the bones? So that's what we're always starting. And that's why the lat is one of the 3 primary muscles, big muscles for me, is because it has a unique attachment scheme, so to speak. It attaches on your big arm bone, right? So on the backside of your big arm bone, it attaches also on your shoulder blades, on your rib cage, and on your pelvis, right? So that's already a pretty good indicator of that shit's maybe more important than whatever, the teres minor or some rotator cuff muscle that's somewhat attached to two bones and not to like the stuff that's actually moving, right? So that's my weird way of looking at it. So that's why I'm focusing on position. So on the Yates row, that means holding stuff at the top doesn't make any sense for him. Why? I watched the video, and once he held it and he held the barbell on top, I saw stuff getting bigger, and it was not the lats, right? So why do I look for visually getting bigger? Because in my world, in my training world, engaging a muscle means literally it gets bigger. That means more blood flow is coming in there. It enlarges. And as maybe some of you might know out there, body parts usually enlarge when there's a lot of blood flowing in there, right? I won't go into any further details, but that's happening throughout your body, right? And especially with muscles. So when I watched this video, I was like, well, that's a pretty good idea, but it's not working. Like shoulders got bigger, arms got bigger, like in terms of volume and pumping it up. And as far as I could tell from a video and him still wearing a shirt, I could not see the lats getting bigger, right? And by bigger, I don't mean like growing into like a tree trunk or something like this. When you activate a muscle, you can see the difference between like a non-engaged muscle, which is pretty floppy, pretty chubby, and a muscle that's engaging, because you can see like literally as I do with my biceps here, it's like, okay, I either engage my biceps or it's not. Like you can see the difference if stuff's turning on, right? And that was the point about the holding part. I'm all for it, but I don't think it's the right purpose for it. If that makes any sense.
I have
Whenever we do exercise,
I
yeah,
have
go
a
ahead.
question just to make things clear. Are we talking about a pump here, or kind of like what we talk about, like when we say a pump, or is that not what we are talking about?
Oh, absolutely. That's, I
Okay.
mean, as Arnie all taught us in the 80s and 70s, at least me, because I'm old, is okay, you gotta search for the pump. What that only means is, okay, the more activation, the more blood I can get into a muscle or a series of muscle, the better I can start to control it. And size is a nice side effect of it if you're going for it. But like feel your lats or feel your hamstring, like what does feel mean? That's what do I have to do so that thingy is visibly getting activated. That's my we need measurable actions for stuff that we're saying to see if that's happening or not. Just engage your hamstring on the way down in the squat or engage your lats in the pull-up that's a pretty good start. But how do I know that's actually happening? And the skill of position, the skill of tension is, I think, the easiest way to combine both worlds, bones and muscles. So that was the main idea behind my question. Okay, the second part is, I like the idea of training a muscle to stabilize, like holding stuff. What I like even more is, and now we're going into the mobility, range of motion, whatever discussion is, okay, but what if we teach that muscle to stabilize, like in an actual, whatever you want to call it, stretched position or in an engaged position. So let me tell you the difference between holding a barbell like this and carrying a frame with your arms extended. So that means your lat is fully on stretch. You're making sure your hips are getting neutral. You're making sure you're squeezing in. That's for me, that's mobility in practice is, okay, I'm going to stretch it as much as I can. And then going to put it on tension, stabilizing wise. And now I can teach my muscles something, because if I do this, and even if I feel my lats, that means what happens when I do a pull-up now? What happens if I have to stretch out my arms? What's the purpose of a lat stabilizing? without being, I hate the word, fully stretched, fully engaged in its full length, right? And if we want to go into the mobility discussion right now, that means, so what is mobility for you, Andy?
Yeah, like strength of the muscle to do the movement in the range of motion. Some kind of range of motion. It depends on the muscle, how
exactly
big the range of the motion.
Perfect. So your definition of mobility is using a sentence, I think it was 5 words, where 2 of them are not defined. You said strength and you said range of motion, right? Because whenever somebody says a sentence, it's like, okay, but what is strength then? What is range of motion? So what is strength for you?
Like yesterday, what I told in the group, ability of the muscle to do the movement under the load.
Exactly. And I'm a cocky bastard. And of course I asked, then what is mobility? So what I'm trying to say here is, this is not against you, but this is how the fitness world works. We're saying something, a definition, and then when there's a question being asked, there's another definition with words that needs to be defined as well. And we're never going to the bottom of like, okay, I'm sorry, but what can I actually do now, like practically, to either get stronger, more mobility, more flexibility, range of motion? Like those are all buzzwords that are out there. Let's try to get to the point here. At the end of the day, for me, I'm going to start with a solution. All of those words are the same. So I say, for me, strength is the same as mobility, is the same as flexibility, is the same as range of motion. Because without my definition of strength, that means without learning the skills of position, without learning the skills of tension, there's no strength happening. And if somebody tells me, okay, Greg, I want to get stronger, like, okay, perfect. What should be the end goal? Let's stay with the lats and go for a pull-up. In my head, I immediately go, okay, what does a pull-up mean? What does it mean position-wise? So my shoulder blade needs to go here. My big arm bone needs to go there. My lats have to engage, obviously, and I need my biceps. And based on that, I can write not only a programming, but I can teach you, and you can learn an execution part, which is based on measurable results. That means if you do Yates rows and your shoulder blades don't get pinched together, that means your lats cannot fully engage. That means it's pointless and it's not about the exercise anymore. So now we can put certain constraints on it. It's like, okay, if that is the end goal, that needs to happen in terms of skills of position, and that will vice versa lead to the skill of tension, or tension leads to the skill of position. It doesn't matter. It's the chicken and egg discussion. It doesn't really matter, right? So that's the whole point about strength and mobility. And therefore, for me, there's no difference. And that is the reason why, for me, it's pointless to work on your mobility, kind of tick the box there, and then do strength work on top. So the the mainstream opinion is, okay, I need to make room through range of motion first, through mobility exercises, because in my understanding, that's the point of mobility. That's what you said, creating more range of motion under tension. And then you're gonna fill that room, that empty room, that newly space extended room up with strength by doing strength work afterwards. But it doesn't make any sense logical wise, because if I create more range of motion, that range of motion needs to be covered in the assistance or strength work as well. Practical example. So let's stick with the Yates row. So let's say my shoulder is whatever tight and I'm missing range of motion. So now I do like stretches and mobility work, and now I have more range of motion, and now my muscles all of a sudden are going to start to turn on in a Yates row, and I still have no clue about where my shoulder blades need to move in order to engage my lats, right? And that's why the skill of position, the skill of tension will make you both at the same time stronger and more mobile, right? And I could totally say this speaking out of my ass, or I could say, this is what I find in my training. This is what I'm doing. I'm spending less time on training. I'm getting obnoxious results from it. You guys are getting results of it. The coaches, our people in the gym are getting results of it. So I guess there's something working here, and we don't have to split it up in between. Okay, have to make more room, and then all of a sudden I have to fill up that room with more strength. I have a funny story. It's almost like saying I'm a non-famous singer, and I'm gonna rent the Madison Square Garden with 50,000 seats in it, and I'm gonna show up, and all of a sudden the whole room will be filled with screaming people loving me. That's not going to happen because nobody knows about you. That's the same with tension and muscle. Just because you make more space and more room doesn't mean there's going to be tension automatically happening because you're doing an exercise, renting out the Madison Square Garden. You're going to be very lonely on that stage, and you've spent a lot of money and time renting out the Madison Square Garden.
Yeah, it makes sense. It makes sense. So,
okay, yeah, go ahead.
The next thing, so next week we are going to do the Yates roll again, shirtless, and we will see then how the lats are engaging. But if they are not engaging, then what should I do to engage more the lats?
Yes, that is the only question that's really important. What can I do to solve a problem? Practically. Perfect question. Okay. So let me backtrack a little bit. So what does engaging mean? So when you take your shirt off next week, everybody's going to scream, obviously. And I'm looking for two things. We're going to post this on the internet. We're gonna look for two things. Once you start rowing, which muscle engages first? It's about the sequence. So that means, is your shoulder like engaging before your lats, or is the lat your first thing that's going to engage, right? That's the first thing we're going to look at. And the second one is, okay, how much of that big muscle are you actually using? So as I said before, are you feeling the lats from the top? So that means from the shoulder, back of the big arm bone, all the way down to the hip crease. It's not enough if you feel like the shoulder blade and upper back part, and you never get that full engagement down to your hips. That's the fallacy of doing rows. Like, no, I feel my lats. Like, okay, so where are your lats and where are you feeling it? And most people say like, yeah, right here. So that's basically upper back, teres major, and all that stuff. And it's not the lat dorsi going all the way down. But what's the point of training for the lat dorsi if you're not actually using it? So that's how far we have to trickle it down. Okay, so back to your question. Start with stabilizing exercises for your lats. So that means frame carry, for example. I mentioned it before. The frame carry is beautiful because you can adjust the grip width. So the further you go out with your hands, theoretically, the harder it is, practically, the harder it is for your lats to engage, right? So we have to find like your perfect frame carry width, so to speak, where you're not going to shrug. That means we have to make it really heavy, because once it gets really heavy, there's no shrugging because it's really exhausting to do this. So you have to keep your shoulders down. That's a different approach in coaching shoulders down than telling you all the time, push your shoulders down, keep your shoulders down. We have to find stuff where there's no other way out than keeping your shoulders down, because the weight is so heavy and you have to grip it. And at some point, your lats have to start working in a stabilizing form. And I know that for you, that you're doing the frame carry once a week. So that's a pretty good start. The next step is...
I need to sorry to interrupt, but whenever I do the frame carry, I feel my lats. I really feel them engaged.
Good.
So
that's perfect, but it's not the end of the road here, because stabilizing the lats is a good first step, but that's not going to help you a ton for doing a pull-up, right? Because in a pull-up, the lats have to actually produce tension, getting you up there. So what is the next step? So we always go for neutral grip stuff next, whether that's a neutral grip lat pull down, neutral grip rows like we do on Mondays with the multi-grip Swiss bar rows, for example. Why? Because the neutral grip, how can I say this in a short manner? The neutral grip helps you engage the right stuff compared to especially the pronated grip and the supinated grip, right? Has a lot to do with your ankles and pressure points, but that's not the point of today. So stabilizing first. Then we're gonna go for producing, which could also be your Yates row. I have zero problem with it. If I make you do Yates rows, I'll let you do a lot of reps with your arms fully stretched out at the top. I'm sorry, at the bottom. Why? Because I want to get that stretch in and literally do this at the end, at the bottom position of your Yates row. So literally let your shoulder be pulled out to the front. Why? Because the lat's right here, the insertion is right here, and I want to stretch that motherfucker as much as possible.
All the way down, yeah.
Yes, so I want to stretch it from
And
here
to go with
all
the
the way
elbow
up here.
as much as possible to go back. Yeah. To have
Yes,
that
and
big stretch.
exactly.
Yeah, I understand. Yeah.
Exactly. And then adding cues, positional cues, like pull the barbell to your hips or keep your elbows closed or whatever it is, then those cues make sense. Without knowing position and tension, they're pointless. Zero. This means nothing if you don't know where the start position is, and if you don't know where the end position is, you can't have any clue what to do in between. It's like sending you on a race without knowing the starting point and where the actual finish is. You're gonna end up somewhere in the woods being lost, and that's what we kind of see in training. All right, I'll let you do a lot of producing tension lats Yates rows without holding at the top. I want you to perform this really fast. Why fast? The slower you do movement, the more you're going to go into your thinking brain process of, okay, what shall I do now? Okay, this is supposed to be this. Forget that stuff. Like, you have to go for your weird non-thinking brain parts, which is like, okay, I'm just going to do stuff, and the only thing I'm going to focus on, is relax my shoulder at the bottom position and squeeze my shoulder blades together at the top position. That's all I'm going to make you do. And you're going to do this for 20 reps and pretty fast. At the time you want to stop, I'll make you do 10 more.
Okay.
Right? Because when you think you're finished, it's probably you have 10 more reps left. Right?
Then
that's how
are going to engage properly. When I'm
yes,
going to be tired, more like, yeah.
I probably should not say this, but I'm going to say it anyways.
Okay.
We're overvaluing thinking and smartness with stuff, right? So we think we know a lot of stuff about Yates rows and what to actually do, when the reality is we have very little clues about a lot of things that we're doing on a daily basis, right? And that's totally fine. But that's why you have to stop thinking at some point, have like the start point and the end point and the tension purpose in mind. Is like, that's all I'm gonna quote unquote think about when I'm doing the exercise. Relax my shoulder, pinch my shoulder blades together, and what I want to see is I want to engage my lats all the way down to my hip crease. That's all I'm thinking about.